out there? Welcome to the Good Share Podcast with Ryan and Ice. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Ice. All right. We're fired up today.
Oh my gosh, dude. So, anyway, we were just talking about your weight loss. Not quite mine, but I had kind of a crappy day yesterday with calories.
Well, let's remind the viewers if they have forgotten, or if you're just tuning in. Ryan and I,
brand new.
We just did like a 4-part series on health and wellness and things like that, losing weight, whatever. And so I'm up a little bit from where I want to be, and Ryan he's a little higher than he wants to be. So we're trying to lose like 15 pounds by June 1st.
Yep.
So we've just been on that journey. So our episodes are going to start to deviate away from that topic. But at the beginning of each one, we thought we'd still have a nice little check-in, see where our weight is, how we're feeling, things like that. So anyway, you were going to tell me yesterday was kind of a bad day calorically for you.
Yeah, it kind of got away from me. So in the morning, it started out fine.
Yeah.
I had my regular whey protein and probiotic, which, by the way, great stuff. And the taste really it's pretty good. It's it's supposed to be chocolate, but it tastes like chocolate malt.
Is this the protein that you got on Amazon or whatever? Okay.
It is. It's muscle milk.
Oh, that's all it is? Okay.
That's all it is, but it's a special whey only protein, muscle milk with added probiotic.
Okay.
So you get 27 grams for 130 calories.
Yeah,
27 grams of protein.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's great.
27 grams.
That's great.
So it's a good ratio. So yesterday I started out with 2 of those with the anticipation of at least getting a ride or something in yesterday.
Yeah.
But I didn't really plan my day very well because I forgot that I had to run Andrea up north to a doctor's appointment.
Right.
So that happened. So there's 3 hours, bang, because it's an hour and a half up, hour and a half back, not including the hour wait, which I did go for a little walk.
Should have taken your jump rope with you. Just out there in the parking lot.
Yeah, just out in the parking lot, jumper rope. So anyway, so that's what happened.
Okay.
And then
but so far you haven't had anything terrible. Just
no, and I had oatmeal. With it in the morning.
So some good carbs.
Yeah, and then a double dip which a double dip would be 2 tablespoons of strawberry jam in my oatmeal, which is freaking delicious. But you know what? Homemade strawberry jam, calorie 30 calories per tablespoon.
It's not that bad.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, when you messaged me the other day about putting peanut butter and stuff in your oatmeal, I tried to message you back several times, but my phone kept jacking up every time I would hold the voice message thing, and then it would and I was like, okay, I'm over this. And I was trying to drive and whatever. I've been putting peanut butter in my oatmeal off and on for years.
I don't know why you didn't tell me that.
I'm sorry. Well, I guess I didn't think about it, but maybe the reason I didn't think about it is a lot of people think it's weird. It's
delicious,
dude. I'll do a half cup of oats, and then I'll do a half cup of frozen blueberries.
Now, do you do steel cut or regular?
It's it's Kroger brand. They come in the tall cardboard canister. It's the quick 1 minute oats that you can just microwave. So I just then I do a half cup of frozen blueberries, then a cup of water, microwave that for a minute 40. Pull it out. I'll do a tablespoon, sometimes 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Mm-hmm. And that's usually all I do. But every now and then I'll do like a tablespoon, sometimes 2, of peanut butter and just mix it in. Boy, dude.
It is so good.
It's real good. But yeah. But I've actually been trying to cut out oatmeal or cut back to just 2 days a week. Yeah. That's one thing that helps keep my calories low for the rest of the day, and I have realized that, man, if I just have a banana and then a double scoop of protein, that banana is enough carbs to fuel me for whatever else I've got going on, and it's enough to replenish the carbs that I maybe burned running. Tomorrow's going to be the test, because I'm going to try and just do a banana and a double shot of protein before I go work out at Damon's. And I used to do
coming up.
big old, I would like go run in the mornings and I would come home and do like oatmeal, like I just said. And then like, 20 tablespoons of egg whites and like a double thing of protein. Like I would have a huge breakfast, but I wouldn't always feel great because that stuff just sits there.
It does. If you're not working it off,
and even the you have to time it right because it'll sit there and then eventually you start to feel okay. And then I feel like, okay, well now I can do some of this intense conditioning or lifting. But if it's just like a brick in my stomach, it feels terrible. So I'm going to see if a banana is enough to fuel me for like the type of intense workouts I do with him.
So back to where I was going here. Yesterday, so that happened. And then, got held up at the doctor's office, got back home, or actually had to pick up the kids with grandma. Grandma decided to make homemade chili. And you gotta eat, because
chili's hard to say no to.
Well, it's hard to say no to, but you don't want to hurt your grandma's feelings.
Well, of course not.
Now I was real careful and I only had a cup of it.
Yeah.
So, according to what I could find, it looked like that was only going to cost me like 180 calories.
I mean, chili's not. Was it beef?
It had some beef in it, but not
a lot of beans.
Beans.
Okay. I mean, I don't think there's anything really inherently bad in chili. So, unless you're just gonna have like bowl after bowl after bowl, like.
Well, I think the crime is a peanut butter sandwich with it.
Oh, well, even that.
But I didn't have that. So
okay.
I didn't have any bread with it.
Okay.
I didn't have any crackers with it.
Just some chili.
Just chili, and she made homemade French fries, and I had 4 fries. I counted those.
Okay.
But it wasn't a lot.
Well, this doesn't sound terrible so far.
Okay, yeah. Then my brother invited us all over to his place, and he made like he fried up chicken, peppers, and a Chipotle-esque type thing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And dude, it was so good.
Yeah, okay.
Like
so
I wound up at the end of the day yesterday because I counted every single thing I put in my pie hole. I wound up at the end of the day, my food intake was 2,010 calories.
Oh, dude, that's not okay. That's you had me believing. Oh man, dude, I messed up. Oh, so many.
What 3,000?
I thought you were gonna be like over maintenance. You're still under maintenance by 200 calories.
I'm under maintenance. I'm just a little bit like should have done.
That's just one day, and that's like I wouldn't have even been mad if you'd have been like,
oh, and I had Oreo truffles.
Well, still, like. Even if you're like, oh, I had a really bad calorically day and I ate like 2,800 calories. It's just one day. You didn't go crazy and have like 5,000 calories. And also nothing except for the Oreo truffle, like nothing you said you ate was like terrible food. It wasn't like I had like 9 pieces of cheesecake. It's like, no, you were still eating like food that was like quality ingredients. That's like veggies and meat and like that all sounds fine. And if you're legit only, if you're still like under maintenance by 200 calories, dude, you're going to be fine. Like that's just one day.
Yeah. And right. I just, you know the type of guy I am.
I do. Yeah. But see,
all or nothing.
I know, but you can't be, yeah. Cause you're like telling me, yeah, man, I had a good day today. I'm like I'm 300 calories under. And in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, you're like 1,900 calories. You're like, no, I'm like 300 calories under 1,800. And I have to be like, Ryan, no, like you can't just eat like 1,500 calories. I mean, you can, but then that's just going to lead to like, okay, you do that for 5 days. And then you're just going to be like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And you have like 3 days of 3,500 calories. Well, then everything you just did was terrible. But if you would have given yourself those 300 calories on the other days and actually gotten to like 1,800, you wouldn't have felt so hangry and gone crazy, you know?
Right.
So
True.
You can't just be like all or nothing all the time. It like, I mean, you can in some things in your life, but don't do that with this because that's a recipe for disaster. Trust me. I've been there. I did it. Because I'm thinking, when you were like, man, I had such a bad day yesterday. Like, well, so you didn't get to work out, but you
that's the other thing.
But you only ate, you still ate under maintenance.
So true, and that's what I kept kind of going back to in my mind.
It's fine.
It's like I'm under maintenance, so I'm still at a deficit.
Yeah,
I didn't get to do as much work as I wanted to do.
Did you work out Monday?
Yes, yeah, I had a good workout Monday.
So one day that, I mean, dude, I just went, I mean, I understand how you're feeling because I
took Sunday off, and then Monday I hit it, and then yesterday happened, and I'm like, I just had a day where.
But then you hit it hard again this morning.
I did.
And how's your eating been today?
Good.
See?
Like I'm
it's fine.
Man, I've got my mornings pretty much down. Yeah. See, here's the thing. Here's the beautiful thing about me. My lack of smell and taste really assists me in this because I can literally eat oatmeal and with a little bit of jam in it for weeks and be completely fine with that.
Yeah. That, that was one thing I wish we would have talked about on the podcast was I wish I would have mentioned like, yeah, you will definitely go for a few months where you're going to eat the same things all the time and it will be hard not to get bored, but like, if you want to see results, like I'm not saying you should do that for the rest of your life, but like it is a good way, I think, physically to condition your body, but also mentally, because then it becomes like, I'm not eating food because like, oh man, this tastes so good, or I really want this. It's like you're eating food for the purpose of the goals you're trying to accomplish, which is, that's really, I hate it. It's so cliche, but that whole phrase of like, eat to live, don't live to eat.
Right.
Yeah, that's such a cheesy way, but it's like, it's so true. Like, that is the whole purpose of us eating, is to help our bodies function the best they can. Not, it shouldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever tastes good all the time. That's a slippery slope, my friend. Like, that's how you get to be 320 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you eat whatever your taste buds dictate and not like what your body actually needs. I'm not saying you can't have some of that stuff every now and then.
All right. So today's podcast, we're finally into it. Music Plateau. It's an interesting thing. And I think, what I think? I was thinking about this a little bit more. I think that this applies across everything, to a degree. But what's interesting about a musician or an artist.
I think you could call it like a creative plateau.
Creative plateau. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Is that it is unlike a trade where you feel like you may have kind of reached the end of your skill set. There's usually something that happens in the trade that changes that keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
You feel me dirty?
I feel you clean.
So, but with the creativity plateau, you're self-reliant. It's all on you.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And I mean, I also don't feel like you ever really reach, at least good musicians you don't ever reach like, there's no finish line. It's not like a skill that you learn and that skill hasn't changed for 50 or 100 years. And you literally do it the best of anybody. Like music or any kind of creative art, it's always changing and evolving. So you can always learn something new, but also art is so subjective. Like,
yes,
the thing this person does might be great, but that doesn't mean I like it. And the thing this person does, you might not even dig at all, but I might think they're like, oh man, they're the greatest ever, like.
Yes.
So I don't think there's ever an end. like, I don't think I'm ever going to be the drummer. I'm never going to be totally satisfied with the drummer that I am. No matter how good I get or whatever, I'm never going to feel like, oh, I've arrived and I can't get any better than I am right now.
Right. Yeah, because, even talking to like the A-listers and guys that I've worked with, and I'm sure some of the people that you have, I've never talked to them about that particular thing, but from what they've said, you can kind of tell that they don't think that they're, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like the
masters.
Oh yeah,
they know they're good.
The really great players are always striving to be better, and the ones that there's like really great players, but then there are the players who like to think that they're great, and it's always the people that are like they always act like they've got all the answers, and it's like, no, really great players don't have all the answers. Like, they know what they're good at, but they also know that they have weaknesses that they are trying to improve.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like,
exactly.
Like, to me, it always kills me if I read that book on Jeff Porcaro, and he hated the way he played shuffles, but he played one of the most famous, best feeling shuffles of all time on Rosanna. But he couldn't stand to listen to himself play shuffles. And he always talked about how he thought his time sucked. And it's like, dude, he cut a lot of records that aren't to a click. And I'm not saying his time is perfect, but like his time element combined with his feel, like, you never listen to what a record he's on and be like, wow, this is all over the place. Like,
all over the place. This guy's time is horrible.
Or I've even heard like guys like Chris McHugh or Greg Morrow or, Shannon or any of those guys. And they always talk about like, I wish my time was better. I wish my feel was better. I wish I could lay my backbeat further back. And it's like,
Shannon's like, I wish I was like a drummer.
Yeah. Like that's my favorite is that Shannon, like, and I understand what he means, but he doesn't like think of himself as like a drummer. It's like his instrument of choice, but he just doesn't feel like and I'm like, dude, you're one of my favorites.
And that's another thing. Like Eddie Bears, he come to Nashville to be a piano player. Great piano player. Yeah. Yeah. And then he got in that bad motorcycle accident and it screwed up his left hand. I think it's less.
Yeah, because that's why he plays open-handed, because he has like pins in his wrist or something.
He can't take the impact with the snare hands.
Well, he was playing drums before that accident.
Yeah, but it wasn't his and
primary
instrument.
Like, it's funny that you mentioned, because the other thing I was going to talk about is like, it's not necessarily always trying to, like, the quest to be better might not always be a quantifiable thing of like, well, this guy plays faster than this guy, or this guy's time is more precise. To me, it should be like finding more things that inspire you, that help shape your own voice. And Eddie Bears is a perfect example, because like, he's probably not like a great drummer. Like, he doesn't have a ton of chops or whatever. He is proficient enough to do the kind of work he gets called for. But like, when you hear a track with Eddie on it, there's no doubt that it's him playing drums. Like, he has a thing and a way he sounds. And I think you can say that about any of the guys in any of the cities, any of the great, like, you could say that about any of the great jazz drummers or any of the great LA guys, or like, like in the 60s, like Hal Blaine. When it's freaking Hal Blaine on a track playing drums. Like, you can just tell. The same way you can tell that it's Porcaro or Steve Gadd. So, any of those guys. Sorry, I'm naming all these drummers, but that's where my mind goes.
Well, right. Talking about Eddie Bears. So, my very first, or maybe it was my second session with Eddie, and then I videoed that thing and sent it to you. Me and Eddie talking to you.
You guys were at the Fun House, right?
Yeah, we were at the Fun House.
That's when I was still in Philly. Yeah.
I was like, hey, Eddie. He's like, yeah, buddy. I was like, hey, you mind doing a video with me? And we sent it to my buddy. He's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And anyways, super, super freaking nice guy. And when of course, Eddie played on every 90s country music hit. Every number one, it was pretty much Eddie Bears. And when I worked my second session with Eddie, I was paying close attention to Eddie because I was fascinated because his time was impeccable. Like he was a freight train, man. I mean, when he was going to hit the snare, he had made his mind up 4 hours ago when he was going to hit that drum. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It was like that type of thing. But the thing you were talking about, where you hear Eddie play, you know it's Eddie Bears. And that time in the studio, when I was watching him play, I noticed something, and I told you this, and I was like, there's a weird thing he gets when he plays across his toms and his cymbals. And I couldn't put my finger on it until I watched him. And because he smashed his wrist, and he's got these pins and stuff in his wrist, he can only really hold the stick overhanded, right? So he holds it like this on everything. Yeah. And he can't really do that.
Yeah, his left hand is a little like club-footed or whatever. Like,
it is. Yeah, it's very stiff.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of articulation with the stick movement. So he has to rely heavily on his elbow and shoulder.
Right.
And you know this, I don't, but it's definitely a different sound when you come across a cymbal.
Yeah. I knew that's what you were going to say. Yeah. Yeah.
At a certain angle being hit like that because the stick doesn't have near the amount of give.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's more like I don't want to say it and make it like offensive, but it's more like a clang. It's like a clang. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So I noticed that. And then the tom sound is strikingly different.
Yes.
Because of the attack. Because of the attack of the stick angle at the head of the drum.
Right. Yeah, dude. Like all of that contributes to why he sounds and feels the way he does.
Yeah. And why I think he's got one of the strongest train beats. Because of that one thing.
What's interesting about that is, he has his pins in his wrist, so he plays open-handed, so his left hand isn't hitting the snare drum because it can't take the impact. But when he plays a train beat, it's the left hand that's playing the accents, like on the 2 and 4, like on the back beat. Which is weird because to me,
that is weird.
I guess that makes sense though, because if I think about how I play a train beat, normally if I'm playing cross-handed or whatever, my right hand would be on the hi-hat, my left hand's playing snare drum. They're playing the backbeat. But when I play a train beat, I play right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. So the right hand is the hand that, it's not my normal backbeat hand, it's this hand that would play the backbeats. So he's playing it opposite, but like...
Just like he would because he's playing open. And if he were playing a left-handed kit... He's playing exactly the way.
Yeah, it's very strange. I think the other thing that's impressive about him, like, you can say, oh, he's not technically that great or whatever. He's just a feel guy or whatever. Maybe that's true. But like he taught himself to play like that. Like as an adult, it wasn't like he learned to play open-handed. He had to like relearn all his instinctual things.
Right.
If you played right hand lead for so long, and then now all of a sudden, like your left hand is the timekeeping limb, dude, that changes how like fills come out or how you get started into fills. Like, and he just did it. I don't know. Yeah. The other thing I'll say about him, not that this matters, but it does, is every time I played the Opry and he's been the guy, like the house guy, man, I met him one time. And ever since then, he remembers my name and who I'm playing with, and he asks me how I'm doing.
Dude, the same thing with me. Like, I didn't work with him a whole lot, but yeah.
And you can't say that about everybody in this town. But he's like, he'll see you from across, the backstage and come over and be like, hey, Matt, like, how are you doing? You here with David and you doing all right? You guys busy this year? And it's like, dude, you're Eddie Bayers. Like, I'm literally nobody. Why are you talking to me? But he cares, because
he's Eddie Bayers.
He wants to, I think people were like that with him when he was a youngster. And he's one of the guys that likes to keep that lineage of like, hey, we're all here helping each other out. Yeah. And this doesn't need to be an Eddie Bayers love fest, but like, I don't, he doesn't always get his props. I don't think he always gets his due in this town.
No. But that's the majority with a lot of those guys that play a lot and they're really good and they're popular is because they have good attitudes. I mean, we've talked about that before. I mean, freaking literally, I've not asked this, but I've said this to a couple other guys and they agree. I'm like, 40% is your skill. I mean, I believe 60% of the rest of it with it is just your attitude and your hang.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a couple guys in Nashville that are absolute asses to deal with, but they're phenomenal.
They're so good that
they're so good. They just deal with them, right?
Yeah.
But they don't like it. I've been on sessions where they're like, have to call this particular fiddle player that no one wants to work with because he's such a dickhead.
I don't know who you're talking about, but it's funny. You don't have to tell me. It's fine.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be nice. But
I'm thinking of a few drummers.
Yeah.
Which honestly, the one gets called a lot, and I don't even think he's really that good, and his attitude sucks. What do I know? I'm not at that level.
So in this session, it was like a limited pressing session, so it was just below master. It wasn't like a huge big deal, but this producer, one of Kenny Chesney's producers, we're just gonna say that, had a fiddle player scheduled. He wound up like getting sick or something happened and he couldn't make it.
Yeah.
But they really needed the overdub done that day. And the engineer made the suggestion to call this guy. And he's like, is there anybody else we could call? He's like, I don't know of anybody else that we can call that would be available to come over today. But we do know that he'll come in and knock it out. He's like, yeah, I mean, he'll play exactly the right stuff, but he's such a dickhead.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, I wonder who. And they said the name, and I was like, I've heard of this dude. I've heard he's really good. And he did not let anybody down. He came in and he was a complete douchebag, and he insisted on using his pair of microphones. I mean, it was like that, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about being in a multi-million-dollar studio with a pretty phenomenal mic locker.
Yeah.
And he brought his. Not to say that his were shit, because they weren't. Right. They were really great microphones, but it's like he's now telling the engineer what his job, and he's going to play the fiddle. He didn't even want to listen down to the song. He's like, I don't have time for it. And so the producer insisted that he listen at least to the intro. So he listened to the intro and he's like, okay, let's go. And one take through, the dude played exactly what needed to be played flawlessly. And then he knocked out the next two. Yeah. And he was in there and out of there in 28 minutes. But
which everyone was happy about because
everybody was tickled that he left. Like, that's the thing. Like, he was like, the producer was like, well, we got what we needed.
Yeah.
Damn, he's good. I'm glad he's gone.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I know we kind of got, like, I thought we might.
Well, we can come back to it. Like, a creative, I mean, I have some ideas about what I do to pull myself out of things.
Well, what
like
I was thinking is what we could talk about is we could just, for example's sake, is talk about entry level and then how that kind of moves along, right?
Sure.
That's sort of how we got started on this. And I thought, hey, this is a good idea. So when you first start playing an instrument, it's never ending, seemingly, with the amount of stuff you start learning and taking in and then applying. Right. Now, applying it correctly is a whole nother deal, but you're constantly learning, and it's just the on the graph, it's just almost straight up.
You started at a base of zero knowledge, so
yeah. Then all of a sudden, I would say at that point you're looking probably maybe 2 to 3 years, right? You get 2 to 3 years in under you.
Yeah.
And you start kind of honing in how to apply these particular things that you've learned. And then all of a sudden you run for about a year of, I don't feel like I'm improving. I'm just regurgitating the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And then this is still very young.
Sure.
Right? Still very young. And then something comes along. So at that point, that first plateau, it doesn't take much. It doesn't seem like. It seems like the tipping point's very, very, the tolerance is very tight. So when that tipping point happened, do you remember what that was for you? Do you, like in a soundbite, do you remember?
Like getting over my first plateau?
Yeah, what it was that was the tipping point that pushed you to the next thing.
I mean, I in a word, yes, but the answer is more complicated than that, maybe. Like, because let's see, I started playing in 6th grade. I don't think I hit my first major plateau till probably like high school.
Okay, so 6th grade, and you were in high school, so that was like 3 years?
3 or 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty darn
probably
close.
It was probably like my sophomore year. So I bet I had like a good run of like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman. Like 4 years where I just felt like, man, I keep improving. I'm learning new stuff, and I'm also learning how to apply it and learning how to use it, things like that. And then,
so what came along in 10th grade that?
Well, so I think now our experiences are going to be different. Everyone's experience is going to be different. I think one of the things that maybe kept me from having a plateau sooner than that is I was taking private lessons all the way through that. So maybe I hit a plateau before that, but it wasn't noticeable, because if you have a teacher, especially then, I was really young and my teacher was really good and much older and much more experienced. Like they're going to be able to throw things in front of you that are constantly going to be challenging and broadening your skills. So I think the reason that maybe it was noticeable that I had one my sophomore year is that my teacher moved away. And for about a year, I didn't take private lessons.
Okay.
So I didn't, and I was also involved in a lot of different stuff, so like I would be taking private lessons, but I was also doing marching band. And then like once I hit high school, I was doing jazz band. So like I was learning stuff in private lessons, but then
who was your teacher?
Mr. Evans, Jeff Evans. He was like the perfect first drum teacher.
Where was that? Was that in Coshocton or was that in Columbus?
Coshocton. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he was the percussion instructor.
Oh, okay.
For all those years up until he moved away. So he would teach privately, but he was also the percussion instructor for like marching band. And there were a couple of years where we did like, I guess in junior high, we did like some percussion ensemble things, and we would do like solo and ensemble competition. That's the other thing. Like when you're that age, there's always something that you're like learning music for if you're going through school.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
Okay, well, 8th grade year and freshman year, I'm in marching band, and even sophomore year, like, so we've got a new show that we're learning, so he's writing all these things, and I've got to figure out what that is. But then I'm also taking private lessons with him and preparing for solo and ensemble competition. And then I'm like also playing drums at church or with other guys in high school, like having a band. Right. So there's always something that is like keeping
you had a lot of variety.
Yeah. And so I've got like all these different things that they're all drumming, but they're not all the same type of situation.
Right.
But they're influencing each other because, I learned this cool snare drum sticking well, now I can apply that to playing tenors in marching band, or, oh man, I could like break up the sticking and make it a groove on the drum set, or a fill or whatever, like, anything like that. But then he moved away, and we had a guy who was kind of took over as percussion instructor, and he was good, but it wasn't the same. But I didn't take private lessons from him. So I didn't start, I would say that period of a plateau where I kind of felt like, man, like, I'm not any worse, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm playing anything new. Mm-hmm. I'm really feeling like my playing sounds stale.
And what I know is limited.
Yeah. And like, I would hear something and be like on a record or whatever, and be like, I'm trying to figure that out, but it would take longer because I didn't maybe have a teacher that I could bring it to and be like, what is this? Or, what is happening? Or I didn't have other things coming at me that would all of a sudden would open my eyes and be like, oh, this thing that I just learned, that's pretty much what I've been hearing this whole time. But you know what I mean? Like, it's funny how things will happen like that sometimes, where you're stuck on like trying to figure this thing out for months and months and months. And then one day you hear it from a different perspective, or like you hear it unexpectedly to where you're not fixated on trying to figure out what it is. And all of a sudden it's like your brain receives the information differently. And then you go, oh, that's just this. Yeah. And then you take like 20 minutes to work on it, and you're like, I've been working for 3 months to figure this out. And all of a sudden it just like clicks.
Right.
So that was like my first major one, I think. And I think what broke it was I started studying then with a college professor my junior year of high school, who way more advanced even than what I'd been doing. And he was like bringing new stuff for me to learn, and like new music to check. Like, that was a big thing. Is I remember him just saying like, you should check this record out. You should check this record out. And I like that kind of conceptual learning, because it's not necessarily, he wasn't like, well, here's this groove, play this, or learn this rudiment. It was like, check out this drummer on this record, and then let's talk about what you're hearing and what he's doing, and like how are you receiving that information? That can be really I think one of the most beneficial things. Like, I'm definitely a proponent of having a good private teacher, especially when you start out. And I think it's good to have it at any point, especially if you feel stuck. Like, just going and studying with someone who maybe can shed light or have a different perspective on something is a big deal.
Even a slightly different playing style.
Yeah.
Man.
But I think one of the best things is records can be so educational. Like, and I don't just mean like, oh yeah, your favorite 5 records that you listen to all the time. I mean like really broadening yourself, even if it's like, man, I don't think I'm going to like this style of music or this artist or whatever. But man, listen to it. You never know.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
I think that was kind of my first one. And then I've had several in my quote unquote professional life.
Yeah.
But I can remember another thing that kind of really woke me up was, I didn't know, we talked about this in the first episode, but I didn't really know who Bruce Hornsby was until my senior year of high school. And the way I found out about him was, do you remember on PBS, they used to show Austin City Limits?
Yes.
I just happened to be flipping through, and Austin City Limits was just coming on, and it was Bruce Hornsby and the Noisemakers. And actually, I don't even know if he was calling his band the Noisemakers yet. I think it wasn't Bruce Hornsby in the Range anymore. I think it was just Bruce Hornsby. And I just remember being intrigued by the drummer. And then I ended up just thinking like, dude, I don't know who this Bruce Hornsby guy is, but it's the perfect blend of like Americana with like jazz intelligence, but like that kind of like folk music storytelling, but like exceptional musicianship as well. It was like this beautiful, perfect package, fusion of like all the things I really liked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like so jazzy that it was like way too heady, but it wasn't like Billy Joel rock and roll. It was like this, there was like bluegrass influence, and I like fell in love. And then I went and bought a bunch of his records and just really that started to shape maybe kind of what I like in music and the kind of player I want to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, for sure.
And yeah, what about you? Do you remember your first Plateau and
so
what happened?
Keeping it quick. Same thing. A self-taught, right? For the most part. And taught by family. So the acceleration was quick. Then right away, before I even was able to hit a plateau early on, and I would say this would probably be around age 10 to 11, my dad got me into lessons. So I started seeing a guy by the name of Rick Troyer that lives in Sugar Creek, Ohio. I think he still has a place up there, and he's a phenomenal teacher. Phenomenal. And I wound up taking guitar lessons from him. And here's what kept me from hitting anything too soon. He would teach me guitar lessons, but the majority of our time was spent talking about music theory. And he taught me like licks and stuff, sure, whatever. But not like a lot. I mean, literally I can think of 3 things he taught me on guitar, like lick wise, like, okay. What he taught me that was far more important than any of that was how to listen to what was being played and understand it and then duplicate it. Like, he taught me like, okay, so the root is this. So we know there's nothing down here to look at and there's nothing here to look at. So you have your space where everything is supposed to be. So work there to figure out what is happening. So you're not spending your time looking down here and here. It's useless because it doesn't work.
Right.
So that was huge. And then understanding some of the basic relationships. So my first thing that happened was after I was I had to quit taking lessons at one point because we were out too much and around for me to go to lessons and whatnot. Was not too, maybe a year or 2 after I had to stop taking lessons. And the other thing was I was not in school at this point. After the 8th grade, I dropped out. No, I didn't drop out. I started homeschooling, and because we were traveling a lot. And homeschoolers can be weird. Yep, but not musicians. Musicians are always weird. So, no, our thing is we weren't like the typical homeschooled kids because we were always out playing club. No, we were never home. And we're always out in clubs, and we were always having to socialize with adults or just or some peers. Sometimes that's the one thing I noticed, like interacting with peers when we did was usually at festivals and fairs, and they would talk to us and we didn't really know how to talk to them because they were extremely immature. Right. And it was just weird because dealing with adults all the time, you have to speak their lingo. So anyway, the first musical plateau was during that time after the lesson stopped, and I just felt like I knew nothing else to play. I was out of things. My bag of tricks was empty, right? Every night I would play the same thing, and sometimes I would get creative and just do noodly stuff and do things that I never pulled off and sounded horrible, bad. But it was more experimental than anything. I was just like, I wonder what will happen if I do this, that kind of thing. Which is a young man's game. Because I was doing that when I was 12. Okay. So I started playing professionally at 9. So 3 years later, I'm doing that kind of type of behavior. Right. So what I can say is I have recently had to play music, and I will emphasize had to play music with these other guys. And they are some of the most selfish musicians I've ever played with. And playing music with them hurts me to my core. Like, I can't stand playing music with these guys. I've already turned down gigs because I know these guys were going to be there. I won't play music with them anymore.
Interesting.
And they are doing what I was doing at 12. And this one of them is 42 years old. Yeah. The other one, he's younger, but he's 23.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting to me.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
It is. So here's what I'm going to say to anybody else out there listening that is, if what you're about to do, you don't have 65% chance of pulling it off, don't play it. Not live.
Yeah.
Do a rehearsal.
It's one thing if you're trying to find something in rehearsal, but if it's like at a performance, no, you can't.
Stick to what you know and what you can do accurately and competently. It is not a time for experiments.
Right.
Now, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, people kind of accept it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of leeway.
But. Yeah. But when you're 18, 19, 20 and up, you've got to, there's a time where the professionalism has to kick in.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I kind of got off on
That's all right.
There.
I mean, I think
just because this was recent, so
sure, the wound is still fresh.
It's pretty fresh, man. It's despicable how these guys perform.
I mean, I think that right there kind of sums up. That is what separates the people who like really do it for a living and have a career, and the people who are like weekend warriors or not even that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's an amount of self-awareness that you have to develop when playing music, and if your growth is stunted and you only reach a certain level in your musical development, then you tend to play music like the guys you just described.
Yep.
Because you don't ever understand the whole picture of like the point of playing music and the point that the job that your particular instrument, like the role that it plays.
Right.
And if everyone's just up there getting their jollies off.
Right. That's what it is.
Yeah. Then that's not fun. I've been on gigs like that.
You know what it's like? It's like watching a baseball game and everybody's got a bat.
Yeah. That'd be terrible. Yeah. And I love baseball, but I don't want to see that.
Nobody wants to watch that. Or basketball, and everybody's shooting from everywhere. They get the ball, they're shooting. They're not passing. They're not playing with the other teammates. They're shooting from half court. They're shooting from the other side of the court.
Right.
They're kicking the ball. What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so this episode is pretty much in the can. So, to summarize a couple things here.
Yeah, because we really
definitely touched on
it.
We touched on it. But I think if you are at a point where you're having trouble breaking through the ceiling, the quickest and easiest thing to do, and I agree with this, and I have done it, and it works. It doesn't work right away, and so have you. You've done the same thing. Find new music. Yep. And just start putting it on a playlist and just play it. Even if you don't even go and practice or play to the music, that doesn't matter. No, the brain is amazing.
Yeah.
Just play it over, because what's going to happen is you're going to recognize patterns, and you're going to hear different inflections of time. And then you're going to recognize that the next time you go out. And you're going to hear something while you blow by it the first time.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're going to go, wow, that actually may really work really well back there. And then the next time you come around, you're going to stick it in there and try it. And you go, oh man, that felt pretty good. That sounded great. and then ta-da, you're off to the races.
Yeah.
You've now reinvigorated what may have been holding you back.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Dude, no, I totally agree. I mean, that's what I was going to say is the way I get over those humps now is I try and find something outside of my comfort zone, whether it's just listening or if it's like playing, like, you know, I think I told you at the, I don't know when it was, maybe even before Christmas. Mm-hmm. I was just really feeling kind of like, oh, I play the same thing all the time and whatever. And I'm not a great practicer because I can't, like, drums by themselves I really hate. I like playing with people, and if I'm learning music for someone, that's one thing. But to just sit down and like, oh, let's work out this independence thing or whatever, like, there was a point in my life where I loved doing that, but now it's like I don't get any joy out of that. Like, it's really tough.
Yeah.
But I found my old double pedal and I threw it on the kit and just started working on that kind of thing, which outside of Spiderwolf, I don't know when I would apply it. And even then, Spiderwolf isn't like a metal band, you know, that might find my spots, but it's just all of a sudden it unlocks like, oh, this limb that is normally just keeping the hi-hats closed.
Yep.
It's serving a greater function, which then maybe that just gets your brain to think about things in a different way. You know, like that, or one thing I'm still really passionate about and I'm terrible at, but I try to get better, is like playing brushes, like legit brushes in like a jazz type setting, like great guys that are really great at brushes. Man, I could listen to that all day. And like trying to get to that level of finesse and like refined, I don't know, skill on using that implement. You know, that's like another thing of in my day-to-day music life, I don't know how much it applies, but that doesn't mean I should not work on it. Especially if it's going to make the day-to-day things. If it's all of a sudden I'm going to be like, oh man, we do this song live with David and it's like normally like a loop or something, but wouldn't it be cool if I had like a brush in my left hand and I played it like this, you know, like all of a sudden it's like, you know, and then David goes, well, that's really freaking cool. And that might lead to him writing a new song based on what you're doing or what, you know, like,
dude,
it can steamroll really quick. But if you show up to your gigs all the time with the same old things, you're going to be tired of it. And then especially if you are visibly tired of what you play, other people are going to get tired of what you play.
Absolutely. Next episode topic, I've already got it because you hit something and I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Okay.
We're going to talk about getting the sounds and playing the thing that this guy did on the record the way he did it on the record. Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay. I don't
because
have any experience
doing
that.
Because I have some very interesting insights.
Okay.
And I think once we start talking about it, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay. Because it's not exactly what it sounds like.
All right. Well, I'm down for that. That sounds good.
Hey, you know what? I'm wondering if you know this.
I can almost guarantee I don't.
Hey, did you know that a whale's penis is called a dork?
Good share.
Hey, thanks for listening or watching the Good Share podcast. Hey, Ice, tell them what they can do.
Well, if you're enjoying the show, please take a minute and like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And don't forget to ring that bell so you never miss an episode.
That's right. And if you want to know more, go to thegoodsharepodcast.com.
Say hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.